How would you feel if you had all of your personal medical records exposed for the world to see? Perhaps you've been seeking mental health support or have had problems with substance abuse or family planning. Well, this exact information was leaked to the world for 10 million Australians in the most vicious and cruel cyber attacks this country has ever faced. This is a full story of the Medibank hack of 2022. The story begins with a false sense of security. Medibank made the announcement on the 13th of October 2022 that there had been a breach, but that they believed that no customer data had been accessed.
Medibank Private today said it's noticed unusual activity on its network. It said it will be isolating and removing access to some customer-facing systems to reduce the likelihood of damage to systems or data loss. We are working around the clock to understand the full nature of the incident and any additional impact this incident might have on our customers, our people and our broader ecosystem.
And that is all the customers heard for about a week. But behind the scenes, a fierce negotiation between the threat actor and Medibank was about to start. Medibank are one of Australia's largest health insurance companies, founded in 1976 as a non-for-profit, but was then later privatised and listed on the Australian Stock Exchange in 2014 by the Abbott government. As such, they have a ton of personal data and sensitive medical records too. So how did all this unfold? Let's wind back to when the initial breach occurred. The initial breach occurred sometime back in September of 2022. With such large breaches like this, we naturally expect the attack to be highly sophisticated. However, once again, we're finding that the attacks used are so trivial, even the most basic computer user could do it with the right motivation. The hackers had purchased leaked Medibank staff credentials on the dark web. We expect that the leaked credentials was a user who signed up to another website with their Medibank work email, which was then later breached, and the password leaked along with it. The threat actor likely purchased a bunch of these credentials and tried them all, in what's known as a credential stuffing attack. Buying credentials like this can cost as low as $50 for about 20 to 30 username and password combinations. But if their access can be confirmed and they are believed to be higher value targets, these credentials can start at $500 or even in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of the purchase credentials worked for a specific account, which we'll just call johnbrown@medibank.com.au. This somehow gave them access to internal systems, which we suspect was a jump host. Then the hackers access their internal Confluence page, which is like an intranet for users within a company. This allows them to use it as a workspace to share key information for internal systems. From Confluence, they could then continue to gain more information about Medibank, and eventually they gained access to the medical data. It's believed that John had a high level of permission within the organization, and therefore it's likely he worked within IT in some system administrator role. This allowed the attackers to easily move laterally throughout the internal company systems until they could find their target system responsible for housing all the medical data. The data was then exported and downloaded without alerting Medibank. Then, on the 11th of October 2022, the threat actors attempted their data encryption. It is standard operation for hackers to attempt what's called a double extortion attack. This means they download the sensitive information from within the organization and then execute ransomware afterwards, which encrypts and locks the users out from accessing their systems or data. We also believe that the hackers had attempted to create 2 additional backdoors into Medibank's network, which again is a common technique to preserve access in the event your initial access method is closed. It was either creating the backdoors or attempting to execute the ransomware, which triggered Medibank's detection. This basically gave the attackers about a month inside the Medibank network before being caught. Plenty of time to work on their objective. On the 12th of October 2022, internal alerting and detection found the hackers. Ironically, it was either the encryption of the data or more likely the opening of the back doors that alerted Medibank about the breach. Internally, Medibank started an investigation into the breach, as well as bringing in the Australian Signals Directorate, Australian Federal Police, and the Australian Cyber Security Centre. On the 13th of October 2022, Medibank made their first public statement. Medibank fronted the media and issued a press release that they believed they had been a victim of a data breach, and while investigations were still ongoing, they believed that no customer information had been accessed. But as a precautionary measure, multiple systems were taken offline in efforts to contain the breach. Medibank likely didn't think any customer data had been breached due to the threat actor maintaining good operational security, meaning the security of the breach operation needed to be clean, with minimal traces to avoid detection and possible identification. From the 19th of October 2022, threat actors made contact with the Medibank CEO. The hackers likely saw the announcement in the media or lost access to Medibank's systems and transitioned their operation into the extortion phase. In this phase, it seems that they operate more like a business in efforts to make money rather than a group of hackers. This was one notable thing that was lacking in the Optus breach. Hackers attempted multiple forms of communication, including WhatsApp messages to the CEO. They invited them to connect on ProtonMail, an encrypted email platform used to protect privacy, but it also attracts the wrong crowd. After a rocky start, communications were finally initiated. The threat actor showed a sample dataset of customers' private health information as proof of the breach and made their demands of $10 million. The threat actor then invited Medibank to use one of their affiliate programs to facilitate the transaction. This service is basically like a broker. Medibank would pay the broker the full fee and the broker would facilitate the transaction and take a 20% cut. The next day, Medibank would make a statement informing customers that they've been contacted by a cybercriminal group who claimed to steal the data and provided 100 policies as a sample. While they were still yet to confirm its legitimacy, they advised customers to remain vigilant and that they've started a dialogue with the threat actor. Medibank had decided to use Refusal as the broker, but proceeded to keep communication via email and not on Refusal's platform. On the 26th of October, Medibank made another press release confirming that data was accessed.
And it's not good news if you're a customer of Medibank Australia today, with the company confirming the recent data breach is far worse than previously thought. It's been revealed the hacker had access to all of its customers' personal data and significant amounts of health claims. Medibank is the latest high-profile Australian business to be impacted by such a cyber attack.
Presumably, the threat actor was watching media reports and was unhappy with what Medibank was saying publicly. The threat actor was growing impatient, but Medibank assured the threat actor that they were obligated to make public statements like this. In an email, the threat actor sent to Medibank said, quote,
"Based on our previous experience in negotiation with our victims, looks like our negotiations going to the dead end. Part of our team wanted to stop negotiation process and start publishing data."
Medibank responded with, quote,
"We appreciate that you have answered our questions openly. We have explained our reasons for needing time. I think we both understand the consequences at stake here, and we are doing our best. We will get back to you."
Ongoing communication would take place until the 7th of November when Medibank had refused to pay the ransom. The Medibank negotiator, Alice, sent via ProtonMail, quote,
"After considering all options, we have made the decision that we cannot pay your demand. It is also Australian government policy that ransoms should not be paid. We understand the impact this may have."
From the 8th of November, the threat actor would start leaking the information. The information that the threat actor had gained was an extract from a database, and as such was not very human readable. That is, unless you know what specific diagnosis codes are. The threat actor was likely angry that Medibank had wasted their time, and to show that they were serious, over the next 3 days, the threat actor started to release information about Medibank's customers who sought help with planned parenthood services, or sought help with substance abuse issues, or had sought out help for mental health issues. They also released information of international students who are part of AHM, a subsidiary of Medibank, focused on international students. And a week later, they released information regarding customers who had treatment for contagious viruses. On the 30th of November, the threat actor announced that the case was officially closed and proceeded to leak the remaining data. This included every piece of customer data for anyone who had filled out a claim with Medibank. The data was in a raw format, but totaled over 10 million customers' medical records. All up, this was over 7 gigabytes when compressed. Medibank released a statement on the 1st of December notifying customers that all the data had been posted on the dark web, including all their medical claim history. On the 10th of December 2022, Medibank made their final announcement on the topic, and that all systems have been returned online and to operational status, having undergone security patching. So, who was the threat actor? The threat actor did not publicly reveal themselves, however, it is believed that the threat actor is either Revil or closely affiliated with them. It is widely believed that Revil operate out of Russia, however, this does not mean that they are associated with the Russian government. Unlike other threat actor groups like Cozy Bear, who are strongly linked to the Kremlin, Revil likely operate from Russia due to it being a safe haven for threat actors, due to Russia rarely prosecuting hackers who are caught. They often turn a blind eye to those activities, as it largely suits their national interest, or at least the interest of the Russian government. In early 2022, with the pressure from the Biden administration, Russian authorities took action against key members of Revil and announced that it had dismantled the group. However, it seems that its associates or other key members are reviving the group right now. In the wake of this breach, Optus, and several other smaller breaches within 2022, the Albanese government in Australia passed new legislation to raise the minimum fine from 2.2 million Australian dollars to 50 million Australian dollars. Minister for Cybersecurity Claire O'Neill announced that they will be launching a special operation to try and track down the threat actors who have been wreaking havoc within Australian cybersecurity.
They will show up to work every day with the goal of bringing down these gangs and thugs. This is the formalisation of a partnership, a standing body in the Australian government which will day in, day out hunt down the scumbags who are responsible for these malicious crimes against innocent people.
This offensive capability seeks to bring justice to those who have been impacted by the breaches. Little will likely ever be publicly known about what this operation does and its success, but I for one am somewhat skeptical about what impacts it could actually have, especially when these countries are not in Australia's jurisdiction. The personal toll from this breach was immense. Medical information can be some of the most sensitive and personal information there is, and knowing that this could be in the hands of people who could use it for bad purposes is deeply terrifying. Many Australians reported on the mental health and fear it struck into them, especially if they were also victims of the Optus data breach only just several weeks earlier. But what made matters worse is that Medibank took a significant amount of time to inform its customers of the breach, with some finding out as late as the 20th of November when the information had been released publicly on the 7th. As for Medibank, when news hit about this breach, their share price fell a sharp 20% in one day and hasn't recovered since. There have been multiple class action lawsuits being filed against them as well. But despite all this, Medibank executives still took home a bonus in November totaling over 7 million Australian dollars. So was this attack sophisticated? There was an element of luck here for the threat actor to get working credentials and for them to be of such high permission. But buying breach credentials and password stuffing attacks are not sophisticated. However, the threat actor managed to use these credentials to find their way into the internal network and remained undetected while moving laterally and exfiltrated data. So this does certainly take an element of skill, depending on how good Medibank's monitoring and detection capabilities were. Based upon what the threat actor said, once they had access to the jump servers, which are like virtual desktops for staff who are outside of the office, they searched for internal source code and documentation from Confluence, which then guided them to the servers containing the claim data, which was hosted on AWS Redshift. Then they proceeded to export the data into a CSV format for exfiltration. So was Medibank negligent? This threat actor is geared towards making a profit. So the easier it is to breach and impact their target, the more money they stand to gain. But on the opposite is also true. If systems tend to have even a basic level of security, this type of threat actor would simply move on to the next target. As we still don't know the full details due to this being an active investigation into a crime, we can only once again speculate from what we do know. Some very basic mechanisms like two-factor authentication, policy for not using work emails for other services, and resetting passwords would have prevented this specific attack. In addition, the jump servers probably should not have had access to the data in AWS Redshift, so this suggests poor network segregation. So I'd make an argument here that Medibank probably didn't have a good security posture or culture to prevent such a basic attack. I have never seen a data breach so vicious in my entire career. The threat actors I've come across have caused significant impact with their breaches, causing significant financial loss, but never have I ever seen one that was so cold-hearted in nature. One where innocent people got caught up in the crosshairs. But as we've been seeing, these attacks are often not sophisticated, just like what we saw with Optus. It just takes a few key failures for these catastrophic impacts to occur. This story was a little bit more depressing than usual, so I thought I'd link you to a bit more of an upbeat video. Click here to see how the first computer virus started out as a prank in the 1970s.